Okay, today I'm going to talk about buy term and invest the difference beyond the basics. You may recall, or you might have heard of people like Dave Ramsey or some other advisors saying, hey, you know what, just buy term insurance, that's all you need, and you don't need this expensive permanent insurance because you're not going to need it because you're going to make your 10 or 12% rate of return. Well, I want to dig into some details here, and I think at the end of the presentation you're going to think a little bit differently. Okay? So we'll start off with a nice little laugh here. The best way to teach your kids about taxes is by eating 30% of their ice cream. Bill Murray. It's a great way of learning how to teach the kids about taxes. So in an ideal world where we don't really exist, where I don't know if there really is an ideal world, and all the travel magazines, maybe there is, but what we're hoping is that life happens as planned, okay? But in the financial world, we've got a lot of wealth eroding factors like taxes, inflation, market volatility, fees, of course. So let's take a look at an ideal world. So in an ideal world, what we have is we've got $500,000 that's growing at 11.83%. Where did I get 11.83%? Well, believe it or not, that was return for large cap stocks from 1986 to 2016. That's awesome. So that $500,000, if you look closely, that is $14.3 million. So our average rate of return and a net rate of return equal out $14.3 million. That is fantastic. Well, here's what it looks like in a nice slope line. But we know that this is not necessarily the way the markets perform. So I'm going to talk about average return versus net return. Here's something that is pretty basic for most people. Let's assume I get 25% rate of return on my $1,000 investment. 25% every year, first year, second year, third year, fourth year. Guess what? My average rate of return and my net rate of return is 25%. And I've got $2,400 that I've made. Not too bad. Here's how the calculation works. 25% times 4 is 100. Divided by 4 is 25%. Well, here's something a little bit different. We also have a 25% rate of return, but the first year I got plus 100%, next year minus 50%, third year plus 100%, fourth year minus 50%. Here's how the math works on that. 100 plus minus 50, 100, and then minus 50, 100, that equals 25%. Now you remember that great rate of return. We see the average rate of return is 11.83%. But our net return, because we've seen some volatility, is 10.37%. We're off a bit, a little over 1%, but guess what? We lost almost $500,000. It's $9.6 million. It's crazy. There's your 11.3%. Is it possible to be at the wrong place at the wrong time? Well, it certainly is. As I mentioned before, we're off $4.6 million. So let's take a look at this. Right after that little year number 6, the markets popped up 30%. After a little bit of a loss in the year. Well, what if we markets are down, we're looking at our portfolio, we're not too crazy about it, You said, okay, let's go conservative. Well, maybe we missed out on that 30%. But now look at this. Instead of that 9.6 million, we've got 7.7 million. Is it possible to be at the wrong place, the wrong time, 3 times in 30 years? Well, if you got my luck, for sure it is. So remember we had after the minus 3%, that's in year number 5, we changed that to a 5%. Oh, let's do something different. Year number 10, we've got almost 38%. What if we change that to 5? Is it possible we could have bad timing there? Well, yeah, certainly possible. Now it's $6 million. It keeps going down. Okay, what about investor behavior after 3 years of loss? Well, where everybody's greedy when things go up, something like Bitcoin, stuff goes down, we like to sell out, and we keep repeating till we're broke. Here's what I'm talking about. Year number 15, 16, and 17. Now those actually happen to be years of 2000 to 2003. So we actually had 3 negative years back to back. So finally we had a 29% rate of return, but because we were couldn't handle it, decided, hey, I'm going to go in a conservative portfolio. Now I'm sitting at 4.8 million. So if you're not making money, who else is? Well, does your advisor work for free? Remember, we're sitting at 4.8 million. Let's say we have a 1% fee, which is very, very reasonable. You can see we paid the financial advisor over $500,000. We're sitting at $3.6 million. Now, how we get that is we subtract the fees and what we had before, but we've actually lost more than just $500,000. We've lost about $1.1 million in fees. That actually works out about $40,000 a year, which is pretty crazy. What about sharing our returns with CRA? Let's assume we're at a 30% tax bracket, and you can see annual taxes, and that's over the 30-year period of $1 million. So now our portfolio is $1.4 million. Remember that $14 million? That's actually almost gone now. But guess what? Our average rate of return, believe it or not, during all those adjustments was 9.1%, but our net return, look at that very closely, is 3.6%. What about eroding factors? Well, we talked a little bit about them. Average rate of return versus net, that's in your pocket. Volatility, markets going up and down. Buyer behavior, what's the odds of people staying invested after they have, say, 3 negative years of poor returns? Investment fees, compounding taxes. That's our friends at CRA. And what else? Term premiums. You may recall I showed you we've got, in a perfect world, we got $14 million over 30 years. That's with $500,000, but showed you a couple thing here with, now we're sitting at 1.4 million. Okay, so let's say we're going to buy some term insurance. I've got a 45-year-old female. She's got 250,000, term 20. She's paying $405 per year. Sounds pretty reasonable. And after 20 years, that goes up to almost $5,000 a year. So over there you can see the term costs. We were to put that in, but we also are potentially losing that money, because not only we lost the 405, but what it could have made. And what I put down is a 5% opportunity cost. So look, what happens to our term premiums? Well, basically it goes to the insurance company takes that money and invests it. The reality is that most people outlive their term insurance. Here's what we got. $405 per year times 20, and after that it's almost $5,000. That's $58,000. But if I took the scenario where we've got at age 20 or after 20 years, now the premiums are going up. It's way more expensive, and that's the way insurance works up. It's very nice at the beginning because it's cheap. Later on it becomes very, very expensive. So this is where I'm saying, okay, we're going to, let's say instead of putting the term insurance, we took this money and we just invested it, got 5% rate of return. Well, that's the lost opportunity cost, is $88,000. That's a fair bit of money we've potentially lost. So where does all the premium dollars go if you cancel your term insurance while you're still alive? Well, obviously the insurance company. Okay. Accumulated money. Well, let's assume that after 20 years we decided, we're just going to cancel our insurance. Well, the insurance company still made that money, and it goes on. Once you've lost that dollar, you lost that dollar for the rest of your life. How long is it? How long can the insurance company grow the profit? Well, they can grow typically 85, 90 years, your life expectancy. The biggest loss is, of course, the death that never arrived, because you bought the insurance to cover an unfortunate event and you canceled before anything happened. Here's what I'm talking about. In this calculator, we've got a present value of $250,000. It's on the top left-hand corner, and it was never paid out to the spouse. So in this case, I've got a spouse passed away at age 85. They happen to live to 94. Over the 9 years, that's cost them $387,000. One thing that nobody ever really talks about is term insurance. In reality, is only about 1% of the policies actually pay. And really, there's an excellent chance for the insurance company to make a lot of money over the next 50 years. What if we could, using the same cash flow, keep the death benefit, recover premium costs, and recover opportunity costs? So, is there any reason why we wouldn't do that? Well, let's take a look. Again, just to recap this slide again, in the perfect world we would have $14 million. Now we've only got $1.4 million. So let's look at these numbers again. We're sitting at 1.4 million. Our net return is 3.6%. Okay. How about let's let assets create asset insurance. So that's really what we're talking about, is asset insurance. What we're going to do is we're going to take $8,000 from the $500,000 every single year, and that's going to fund a whole life policy. Okay. This policy, if you take a look at it, it costs us about $8,000 a year. There also is something called, the way I put in there is a disability waiver premium. That means if you're ever disabled, insurance company has to pay for your premiums. If you look at age 65, the death benefit is $520,000 and the cash value is $200,000. At 75, it's about $667,000 and the cash value is $368,000. And at age 85 is $810,000. That's the death benefit, and the cash value is heading towards $600,000. So what we're doing is we're literally turning the tables on the insurance company. Because remember, we would have lost $88,000 in the term premiums that we spent, but we can't get back, assuming we can get a 5% rate of return. We also get some tax recapture. So by tax recapture means basically if your portfolio is a little smaller, you're going to pay a little less in taxes. We also have fees, because guess what? Again, if your portfolio is a little smaller, you're going to pick up another $100,000. Also, we've got the death benefit, as I mentioned before, $667,000. We've got a cash value and dividend profit sharing at $368,000. So if I look at the two, what I've got here is I've got almost $300,000. And at age 85, let's say that's near life expectancy, $810,000 death benefit and cash value of $480,000. So I don't know if you recall that what happens if no benefits are paid, the death benefit. Well, it's $631,000. Where do we get that number? Well, let's say the spouse cancels the insurance and dies a year later. The potential loss to the spouse is $631,000. What happens if they keep the term to 75, but the spouse dies at 76? Well, in that case, there's no death benefit paid for 9 years, so that has cost the spouse $387,000 for 9 years. So the potential loss is to the spouse is $532,000. Let's take a look at how we got these numbers. So what we've got here is we got the 405 at 5% over 20 years. That's $14,000. The next is the $14,000 at 5%, and then the person is paying almost $5,000 a year for the next 10 years. That takes them up to age 75. That's $88,000. The $88,000 over the next 10 years is $144,000. So if I take the $144,000 and the $387,000, so if I just go back a bit here, remember if there's no death benefit paid, that's $250,000. And in that case, if they died at 76, the potential loss to the spouse is $387,000. So if I took the $387,000 plus the 144, I come up with, in the last box there, is I come up with 532. And I do that for the next 10 years at 5%, that's $867,000. So that creates a bit of profit for the company. So if there's a way to keep the death benefit, we cover all the costs and opportunity costs within the cash flow, would there be any reason why you wouldn't want to do that? Now, just a quick explanation of this 867,000. That's assuming the person's living 10 years past the life expectancy to say 95. So when we look at rates of return, the initial rate of return, we say, okay, well, we got a cash value that in theory we could cash out, but that doesn't really look so great. It's really only 2.6%. But we forget about the money that we could have recaptured from those term premiums that we paid. So we take the 368 plus the 88,000. Now it's about 4%, a little better. Also, don't forget the fees and the taxes. Now we're talking 6.3%. We start adding all this stuff up, and now we've got 8%. Okay, so again, net death benefit minus the 368 is almost 300,000. So 709 plus the 300,000. What's your chance of dying one day? 100%. So really what we want to do is we turn the tables. We want to acquire whole life insurance with no additional outlay, out-of-pocket outlay. We cover all the costs and opportunity costs. And we might be able to get around 8% on premiums. And that 8% is a safe 8% versus taking a lot of risk. Why would anybody want to purchase term with all its many pitfalls to cover a sure thing? So imagine if you're at a casino, we got a 100% chance of dying someday. Why are we taking a chance that the odds of us dying is less than 5%? So here is a quote from a book. It's called The Economics of Life Insurance. The insurance is the opposite of gambling. Which road would you prefer? The one with guardrails or the one without? If you've got any questions on this, feel free to send me an email or give me a call. Thanks very much.